In this video, we are going to create a Flask application for our machine learning model that we had created in our previous video. So for that, first we have to create a virtual environment. So our whole project will run in a same environment. So that can be done by a VNV library. So the command to create our virtual environment is python -yum, then the venv library and our name of our virtual environment, which is env. So here you can see the env folder has been created, which is our which contains our virtual environment libraries or files. So here you can see our environment has been created, so we need to activate it. So the command is to path of that activate file. So we are going to call it. So here you can see we had enter into our environment, which is env. So now first we have to create our main file, which is main.py file. So here we are going to write our Flask application. So first we have to install our Flask libraries that is needed for our project. So we have to install it by pip install Flask. These all libraries will be installed in our virtual environment and not in our local system. So after Flask also we have to install the Flask course, which will be used for cross origin. So it can be installed by pip install and the Flask course. So here you can see it had downloaded it. So let's create our app. So first we have to import our libraries. So from Flask we are going to import Flask instance. Then we have to render our template on our browser. So it need render template. Then to access the form data we need a request. So also we have to import Flask course and we have to import a cross origin. We have to create an instance of our app, which is app and the Flask, and we are going to pass the name of our current. This is the file. So after that we have to assign the paths and the functions that we are going to process in that path. So first one is the app dot root, and which is our default path, which is a home path. So here we have to cross origin, and we have to define a function which will be a index. It can be anything. So here we are going to return a render template, which is a render template, and it will be a home.html file. So to store our HTML files we have to create a templates folder, and to store our CSS, JS and images we are going to create a static folder. So in our templates we are going to create a file which is home.html, which will be rendered in our index function, that is on our default page. So we are not going to type HTML file from scratch. So you can just copy paste from my GitHub repo. So here is our home.html file, which is basic common HTML one page file, which has some banner and one form which will collect our data of our variables like item weight, item content, item visibility, like that. So in our static file we have to create two folders, which is images and CSS, to store our CSS and images file. So I had copy pasted the files. So here you can see In static we added two folders, css and images, and in css there is one file which is style.css, and images which contain two images, which is icon and background image. So let's get back to our main.py file. So here we had created our home.html. So here we had created our default page for our Flask application. So let's try to run this. So for that, first we have to uh, run our app. So if name is equal to main, we are going to run our app, and debug will be a true. So let's run this Python file by using command python main.py run server. So here you can see our homepage. Here is the logo and the title and some information about store self forecasting. And here is the one form given. So user have to fill that form to predict the outlet sales. And here is the one footer. So if we fill this, so it's not going to work now. So first we have to create an endpoint for that. It is just one a simple form which taking the input from the user. So to predict the output, we have to create a function for that. So let's get back to it. So let's quit our server by Control C, and let's create a root for that, app dot root, and our root will be a predict. And here is a cross origin, and we are going to define a function predict. And here the methods can be get or post. So if method is post, we are going to predict the output, and if it is not, then we are going to return a render template, which is our home.html file. And here our output will be a 0, and we are going to render template home.html, and our output. So it will pass output variable to our home.html, and it will represent the output. So it is just an initialization. So let's collect our data from the form. So first one is the item weight, which is a float value. So we are going to collect it from the form, and the value is item weight. So we are going to do the same for item path content, item visibility, item type, item MRP, outlet establishment year, outlet size, outlet location type, and outlet type. So we had access our data, which is item path content, visibility, type, MRP, like this. So we have to import our model, right? So it can be done by accessing our files which is in our source folder that we had created in our previous video, which is rfmodel.pickle. So for that, here we can define our file. So for that, first we will import the pickle library. And after that, we are going to read our pickle file. And it will be a readable format. And we are going to read it as model file. So we are going to read it in our model variable. So pickle dot load in our model file. So our model has been stored in our model variable. So now we can pass the variables to our model and predict it. Here, one variable is outlet establishment year. So we have to process some data to predict our output, which is outlet sales that we had perform in our perform while creating our machine learning model, right? So first is the outlet establishment year. So we had created a one column which is outlet years, which represent how old that store is. So that data is of 2013. So we are subtracting that values from 2013. So while taking input from the user, we have to subtract that value from the current year, right? So let's create a variable which is outlet years. So which will store the difference between the current and the input year. So for that, to calculate the current year, we have to import one library which is a date time. So let's import it. So from date time we are going to import date, and we have to create one variable to store our current year. So today's date is equal to date dot today. So it will store today's date, so we can access the year from that. So outlet years is today's date dot year, and we have to subtract it by a outlet establishment year. So it will calculate the how old that store is and store it in outlet years. So we have to create item visibility mean ratio. So here we are storing a value which is 1.06, which we had analyzed from our previous video. And there are some categorical data, so we have to assign some values of 0 and 1 to that. So first one is the item fat content, and it had values like 0, 1 and 2, that is low fat, non-edible, like this. So there are three variables: item fat content 0, item fat content 1, and item fat content 2. So it is for item fat content. So first we will initialize the values with uh, 0, and after if else statement we are going to change the values. So like if item fat content is equal to low fat, then our item fat content 0 will be a 1 and other values will be 0. And if our item fat content is non-edible, then our item fat content 1 will be 1 and other values will be a 0. And else our item fat content 2 will be a 1 and other values will be a 0. So there is another variable of outlet size which is high, medium and small. So for that item outlet size, which is also outlet size 0, 1 and 2. So outlet size 0, outlet size 1 and outlet size 2, which is a small. So we had initialized the values with the 0. So if outlet size will be high, then our outlet size 0 will be a 1, and if our outlet size is medium, then our outlet size 1 will be a 1, and else our outlet size 2 will be a 1. That is, if it is a small, then we are going to assign the value 1 to outlet size 2 variable. So for outlet location type, which is tier 1, tier 2 or tier 3, so it has also values like 0, 1 and 2. So let's initialize the values. Outlet location type 0 is equal to 0, then the outlet location type of 1 is equal to 0 is equal to 0. So let's assign the values. So if outlet location type is tier 1, so our outlet location type 0 will be a 1. And if our outlet location type is of tier 2, outlet location type of 1 will be a 1, and else our outlet type 2 will be 1. So again there is one variable which is outlet type. So type of our storage, which is grocery store, supermarket, of 1, 2 or 3 type, like that. So here are 4 variables outlet type, which is 0, 1, 2, 3. So let's initialize it. So outlet type 0 will be a 0, outlet size 1 is 0, and here we are going to change the variables like, so here we are initialize the values, so let's change it by conditional statements. So if our outlet if our outlet type is a grocery store, then our outlet type 0 will be a 1. And if our outlet type is supermarket of type 1, then our outlet type 1 will be a 1. So like that we are going to assign the values for type 2 also. And else our outlet type 3 will be a 1. So there is a last variable which is item type, which represent it is a drink, food, or like that. So it had three variables. So we had we have to initialize the three values of item type combine. So let's assign the values of item type, which is 0, 1 and 2. 1 and 2. So after initializing, let's change the values via conditional statements for item type, whether it is a drink or food. So if our item type is food or a drink, then our item type of 0 will be a 1. And if our item type is of food, then our item type 1 will be 1. And else our item type 2 will be a 1. So let's create an array of variables that will store all the values. So features will be an array. So here we are going to store the values, which is the item weight, so item visibility, then the item MRP, then the outlet years, then the visibility ratio, after that item fat content value like 0, 1 or 2. Item fat content 0, item fat content 1, and item fat content 2. After that outlet size of 0, outlet size 1, and outlet size of 2. Then the outlet location type of 0, location type of 1, and the location type of 2. So after that, another variable is outlet type of 0, 1, 2, 3. So after outlet type, we have to store the item type, which is the last variable or the last columns of our dataset, which is item type of 0, item type of 1, and the item type of 2. So after that, we have to try by predicting the values. So we are going to store the result in our result variable, and model dot predict, and we are going to pass the features. So here, if the result is calculated without any error, then we are going to render our template and pass the value of result to an output. And if there is some error occur, then we are going to print uh, some error. So here let's try to print the result. So yeah, it seems to be completed. So let's try to run our web application. Python main.py run server. So it's saying no model name sklearn. So let's install it by pip install scikit-learn. So our libraries has been installed. So let's run our application. So head back to our application. So it seems good. So here it will create an array and store it in result. So let's access its 0th element, and let's quit our server and rerun the program by python main.py and run server. So let's head back to our web application, to our home page, and yeah, it's running. So let's try to predict the output. So let's item weight is let's say 12 gram. Fat content may be normal. Visibility let's say 0.012. Item type is soft drink. MRP let's say it is of 70 rupees. Establishment year let's say it is of 2020. Outlet size is of medium. Let's say it had $75 like tier 1 grocery store. So let's submit the form. So here it had predicted the sales as 170. So here we had created our Flask application for our machine learning model. So that's all for today guys. Thank you so much for watching this video.